I'm very self-conscious, you know?
Yeah.
I do this whole podcast, but I don't actually want people to hear what I'm saying. Welcome to No Clip, the podcast that's like a book club for people who think books don't reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Ruthermans.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about A Hat in Time.
But first, if you like the content, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a like or a rating.
A Hat in Time is a game that was developed by Gears for Breakfast and published by Humble Bundle, and was released in 2017 on Windows, Mac, PS4, Xbox One, and then was just released on the Switch in 2019. It's a lot of consoles that this is on.
Mm-hmm.
So, A Hat in Time is a 3D platformer in a very traditional sense, and we will get back to that, I think. But I think an interesting thing about this is that it was actually published by Humble Bundle, which is the first time that we've talked about a game that they have directly funded.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that they did that. So I thought that was weird to read on the Wikipedia page.
Right. And it's also a game that raised funds through crowdsourcing as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was on, was it Kickstarter? It was on
It was on Kickstarter.
Okay, I thought it was, but I wasn't 100%. So this is a very, community-minded kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And now we come back to it being a 3D platformer because there are other games, notably Ukulele, which came out at a really similar time, that are also this kind of a throwback, collect-a-thon 3D platformer style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the message that this sent is more like there still is an audience, even if it's niche, for this genre of game that doesn't have the word Mario in the beginning of it, you know?
Yeah. Especially this game gained, I think, more traction after a lot of people found Ukulele to be disappointing. Because Ukulele came out first, and then A Hat in Time came along, and people were like, now that's what we're talking about. This one was received a lot better.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what it is that's the... I haven't played Ukulele, but I get the feeling that Ukulele gets kind of, a lot of shit because it's made by people who were Rareware team members.
Yeah, I've played them both. I actually backed both Kickstarters because I'm a big 3D platformer fan.
Yeah, you are the niche audience that these games are
100%. But Ukulele, I think's biggest problem was there were expectations because it's a lot of ex-Rareware employees, but they tried to go too ambitious for the amount of money they could get on Kickstarter. A Hat in Time manages its scope way better by having only 4 main levels in the base game, whereas Ukulele tried to be on the level of Banjo-Kazooie and have 10 or however many.
Yeah.
And it gets a bit sloppy in the middle / towards the end, but I do think it gets a little bit too much shit, more than it deserves, but that's another podcast for another time.
Yeah, that was always my impression as well.
I think they've patched it pretty heavily since then, so I imagine it's better now than it was, because it also had some control issues and things people didn't like about it, but I also think those were blown out of proportion as well.
Yeah, and if you compare this game, A Hat in Time, to other 3D platformers, you can also see the rough edges. You know that this game is not made with a AAA budget, or it's made with a budget and also on hardware that people are really used to being able to do things more impressive than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it the quality of this game and the fact that the expectations of people who got this game were lower is probably what made this game get a lot higher reception.
Yeah, and you mentioned up front that it's very a community-minded kind of game. This game started as a project by a guy who just wanted to boost his portfolio or his resume. He just thought he would make something small, and it just kind of grew into this. And I think it's been a very modern approach to development where a lot of the team worked like completely remotely and never really met in person, at least for a long time, as far as I'm aware, anyway. But and like it was just like a really open like development process. So yeah, it was just really smartly designed and kind of like, yeah, as you said, it has lower expectations because it was such a casual, like humble beginnings.
Yeah, Humble Bundle.
Which is why Humble
beginning.
Bundle picked it up, yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate your efforts to disguise this fact by saying that you didn't know if the team members had ever met themselves in person, because I'm not convinced yet that you did not oversee the full design of this game.
It is very up my alley. Hey, Gears for Breakfast, if you're hiring any graphic designers, I'll work for you.
Yeah, it feels between like the art style, the sense of humor, the style of game that it is, like everything does feel very much like your type of a game.
Oh yeah, like this game pulled me in or like grabbed my attention pretty much immediately. Like I love the Hat Kid's spaceship as like a hub. At least aesthetically and like visually and everything.
And
like,
the fact that it's a hub.
Yeah, the fact that it's a hub. It's just really likable. Like the first hallway when you come out of a room and like the way the rug looks, and it's like there's something about the aesthetic of it that's just really cool. And I know we've compared many a game to it, but it has this like Saturday morning cartoon vibe. I can imagine this as a TV show. Like Hat Kid is traveling home through space, and like she stops at a different planet every week to have a little adventure.
Yeah, like her house is not that aesthetically different than the Kids Next Door treehouse.
Oh yeah, it's like a clubhouse.
Yeah,
she's even got like a pillow fort, and it's just like
not really a pillow fort, more of just like a literal ocean.
Yeah,
of
the
pillows.
pillow pit.
Yeah.
With a diving board, but like it just has this sense of like imagination, and it's kind of hard to describe. I think it takes a lot of influences from a lot of different places and really uses them well and doesn't feel derivative. I think it's one of the game's biggest strengths, because like a lot of the inspirations are like worn on its sleeve, and you can point to a lot of different things and be like, this reminds me of this, that reminds me of this reminds me of that. But like it doesn't feel like it's trying to like copy anything.
Well,
I think
the one thing that I noted, and this is such a dumb thing that I didn't necessarily want to bring up this earlier, but the game is broken into levels, and each level has like a superstar, like a timepiece for you to collect, and when you collect it, it boots you out to the next thing.
It's very classic, like Mario 64 and Sunshine, like mission style.
Right. But they also have these areas that you can go into. It'll show you a picture that are called rifts, time rifts, and it's a hard word to enunciate properly. Rifts.
Yeah.
But when you go into them, they put you into like a specific area outside of the main world.
An abstract level.
Yeah, well, some of them are abstract. Other ones are like I think they're the purple.
Purple rifts are different. Yeah,
they have like narrative associations. But the regular rifts that put you in the abstract world contain oblong rectangular platforms with pegs on them that spin, and I was like, that's just, they took the Mario Sunshine wood block with pegs and copied it and then just desaturated all the colors, and we're like, here it is.
Yeah, like even that though, as specific as that one thing feels, like those levels also really remind me of Mario 64 because of the music that plays. It feels very like Dire Docks. Like the fact that it's like underwater themed, and like there are whales in the background, and you can hear whale cries once you get close to the timepiece. Like it does enough different, unique things with it that even like the really specific references, like the owls or the crows in the Owl Express level, are clearly just Psychonauts references, like the Milkman conspiracy kind of thing. It puts enough of its own spin on it that it stands out as its own thing to me.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's just that one object that I wanted to cut because it is very... It's weird because it's such a generic object.
It's a very specific thing,
but it's
though.
a really specific object because of its association. Like,
Yeah.
And even it rotates in the same... It's wild that that was the thing. And I also found this weird... We're just talking about rifts now, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this conversation is, so I guess it's fine to do it up front. But, like... The fact that it is, like, you have, like, bubbles that come up and it plays, like, sort of, like, aquatic adjacent music, plus the whales. Like, there is water in the game, so, like, obviously this is some other weird type of thing. This is time water. So be time water.
Yeah. It's frozen in space.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's not affected by gravity.
Yeah, because this isn't... You don't swim through these. They're just regular platforming levels with that aesthetic.
Yeah. Kind of think SpongeBob rules, where it's technically underwater, but they're just kind of walking around.
Yeah. The other ones, the ones with a story...
The purple riffs.
Yeah. I think are very cool. I really like this idea, and I'll go into why I don't think that the game's plot should be at all something you consider when, like, determining whether or not you liked this game. But the fact this is such a cool way of delivering story, and it's not the first game that's ever done similar things. I think that, like, the main levels of Psychonauts are kind of like the version of this taken to its, like, most extreme example, where it's the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
But it is still very cool.
Yeah, it's like the what is it, the vaults in Psychonauts.
Yeah.
And I like the way that they're hidden in this, though. Like, that it's like its own separate thing that you have to, like, go out of your way to find, like, making it feel more secret. And some of them even take the tone of, like, you're infiltrating a place.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And then you get rewarded with backstory through way of a slideshow. So as a reward to, like, and it gives, like, more context to the levels, like the main characters of the levels.
And I feel like a lot of them, specifically, like, the backstory that they give to the villain characters goes a long way to sort of, like, explain the ending of this game, where I feel like if you just got there and never did any of the time rifts, you'd be like, this feels weird, where they kind of give, like, a reason for any of this to be happening. It gives you, like, it makes the point of the game seems to be that the villains are not really all that villainous, and, like,
it's misunderstood.
Yeah, and people who are bad can also have good sides to them, and people are more complex.
Yeah, even the main villain isn't really evil.
Right.
But yeah, no. What was I gonna say? It gives the game world, like, a more of a sense of place, which goes a long way.
Yes. We should move and maybe come back to that later when we're talking about something more related to it. Let's talk about the fact that this game is a 3D platformer and the mechanics of it, because that is why we played it for the most part, right? Like, so this game, how do I want to describe this? What game is this most like?
I think, like I was trying to get out earlier, I think it's a mishmash of Sunshine, Psychonauts, and, like, Mario 64, the ones that I drew comparisons to. If you want to count the influences from 64 and Sunshine as different things. But yeah, in each, it's hard to pin down because I think each level goes for, like, a different thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess my answer is it's several different things. I don't know if you had something different in mind.
Yeah, I liked Psychonauts a lot, both the game and also your comparison here, because I think the key thing is that Hackett has, like, a double jump, and also, like, the Mario Odyssey dive thing.
Well, that's in all the Mario games, though.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, you can like dive and jump and dive and jump. That's like ripped straight from Mario.
I'm arguing more the like mid-air utility of
Oh,
it.
the mid-air version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like that. The fact that your mobility in the game is designed, like the platforms and everything are designed around the fact that you don't often get a lot of vertical height, but you can get across huge horizontal distances. And I think that's sort of, to me anyway, that's like the defining factor of like how this game plays in comparison to other 3D platformers.
Yeah, it's got a good like sense of mid-air control. Like you could save a jump, like that may have otherwise been flubbed.
Yeah, by doing like the dive and stuff. You can also fuck up your own jumps, but I think that's all part of the fun of playing a 3D platformer. Is panicking and going, I gotta get, and then you end up way overshooting the thing. Yeah, it's bad and great. And but it makes me really torn on how I feel about this game in comparison to the aforementioned 8 3D platformers we just talked about. Because this game does, in its platform design, what I loved about games like Mario Odyssey and Psychonauts, and does in its world design what I loved about games like Mario Sunshine and Psychonauts. And I think when you like take the two and put them together, the problem that we run into is the game has this really expressive movement system, but these worlds that are designed with like a sense of visual consistency that makes them kind of difficult to platform in, because like you don't exactly know what everything is and how you're going to react when you interact with it.
No, I would agree with that. Especially, also a thing that you mentioned is that it seems like the movement is designed for like covering big horizontal distances, but like the first level, Mafia Town, is a vertical level.
Yeah.
So it seems weird that they don't clash or anything, you know, like they're compatible enough, but it's weird that the first level in the game doesn't go hand in hand with the mechanics as well as you might expect.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I didn't really consider the layouts of the levels in that context, even as I was making that argument, but it explains what I'm thinking a lot, because by a huge margin, my favorite like individual level was Subcon Forest.
And it's the most open.
Yeah, it's huge, and like the collectibles are all fun, and they have like, so Mafia Town, we're just gonna compare the two. They're like my two favorites, I think. Has vaults as its like level collectible, where you find codes, and when you find the codes you get the vaults and shit. And they have things in them. In Subcon, the version of that exists are these like fire spirits that control whether or not like chunks of the level are open.
Yeah, like there are these invisible walls basically, but it's like a fire wall in the game, you know, that block your progress, and you have to collect paintings and throw them into the fire for the fire demons to get them to take down the walls.
Yeah, well, to make them die, essentially. Yeah. But they want it, so it's okay.
Yeah, they're begging for it real creepily like.
But in addition to that, the other mechanics in Mafia Town don't really make that like that much of a new engaging experience. I mean, it's the first level, so you don't need to like spice things up yet, but like while you're looking for these vault codes, you have things like umbrellas that bounce you, which are somewhat unique to that level. And what else? There are lots of balloons in this one.
Yeah, there's a lot to bounce around on. I think Mafia Town kind of suffers from including too many things in it, because like they want it. I think this ties into the way the power-ups, the different hats are designed. They put as much stuff as they can into the first level, like they're going for a Metroid kind of thing, to make you curious about them. And you'll want to come back later once you get the new hats to like be like, oh, I remember this thing I couldn't get to. Maybe this hat will let me get it.
Right.
I think they're going for that sort of thing, and it creates a little bit too much like visual noise. And like you were saying with the vaults, the vaults end up being, I think, a little bit harder than they should be, and it seems like the developers realize this too, because when you touch the vaults, there are these little like streamers or whatever you want to call them. A little line comes out of it that just takes you to where the little ticket is.
Yeah.
The code. And so it's because there's so many vertical buildings everywhere that they get occluded and they're hard to find. So they feel like they need to give you a helping hand to find them. And it's just like a little bit too much going on.
Yeah.
They were a little overambitious with Mafia Town, I think.
And the design of that follows through to most other collectibles. There will be like something that leads you to where it goes, or to where it is. And
Pawns.
Yeah, with the exception of like the big collectibles, like things that are just like things you collect throughout the game. But like the fire has trails that lead to all of the paintings that you have to throw in.
Mm-hmm.
I think where Subcon succeeds, where Mafia does not, is the fact that in Subcon, well, okay, I'm gonna lie, I'm a little bit, or I'm gonna say I'm being a little bit biased here, because Subcon makes heavy use of the best hat in the whole game, which is the mask, the Dweller mask, which is fantastic, and I want to talk about that mechanic for a million years, but maybe not a million years, just like 1 year.
You want to highlight it?
I want to highlight it because it's fucking great. But it has that and this big open area, and you have it makes you want to explore it more than Mafia Town, which makes you want to take an aspirin. Like, those are you two.
It's Mafia Town's more like clustered in a smaller space, and Subcon's more spread out. And I think the way that they gate some of the areas makes you even like more curious. It makes you want to explore even more. So once you get the ability to actually check things out, once you've done like the first timepiece or so, and you can actually go and explore, there's a whole bunch of optional stuff to find. Like you can spend a lot of time just exploring like the other half of the map you don't visit in any of the main story of the level. And
they've got like the long sight lines and everything. Like you can see the like yarn balls and relics from further away, and because of that, it's sort of like it pulls you toward them. It gives you that like that feel like I gotta get it. It's right there, and then you get there and there's a whole platforming like puzzle setup. And also the game has like, and this is something I've been playing another 3D platformer recently. It's called Super Mario 64, and one of the things that I was actually impressed by. Because I haven't played Mario 64 in years, and I didn't play very much of it when I did, is that there very frequently super different routes that you can take to get to things, like anywhere on a map. And Hat in Time has less of that, because I think Mario's were a lot of just sort of like, they just shoved shit in it, because they were like, we don't know how to make this yet. And so by accident, you can do wild shit to get to the places you want to go. Hat in Time has some of that, and it feels more intentional. And Subcon is also the best place for that, because you've got all of the jumps that you can make around on the tree boughs and shit. Like, it's great. Real good.
Yeah, it's almost like its own secret like tier to the level, like the upper part. Like once you are able to get up there, like you can go all the way across the map, just jumping on little tree stands and, little swinging on nooses.
The noose that talks to you? I love that so much.
It's very creepy.
Yeah, I love that neck.
Yeah,
that's such a good neck.
I think it's because, obviously, like, this game is just, like, an all-ages game. It's not aimed at kids. But, like, the fact that Hat Kid is a kid and, like, the noose is like, I haven't seen such a sturdy neck as your... it's just, like, a morbid joke. And it's just, like, it just hits you weird. Even though it is funny, like, you're like, you feel kind of weird about laughing about it.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes it such a good...
And the voice is great.
Yeah, the voice is super good. And they, like, even in the credits sequence, the noose shows up as, like, a representative of Subcon Forest. Yeah, I think what makes it so funny is the fact that it is like extremely unexpected, but the thing that it says is what you would expect it to say.
Yeah.
So it like throws you. When I say throw you for a loop, I mean it in the most literal way possible, both because it is a loop and because your expectation goes from this isn't going to talk to oh my god, it is talking, totally unexpected, and then but what would a noose say? Exactly this. So the noose, excellent character. Somehow.
I like the idea that it actually doesn't like what it's used for and is very depressed.
So it wants a sturdy neck.
Yeah, so it doesn't break.
Die. Yeah.
But anyway.
God, I didn't expect that metaphor to be so good.
A spin-off film about the noose from the Subcon Forest. Please.
Exactly. So yeah. That's man. We're all right. We're a little bit far.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to more specific mechanics discussion, or do you want to talk more about levels?
I mean, I think they kind of go hand in hand, but I mean, to run through, there's some really truly excellent mechanics in this game, and there are also some really excellent mechanics that I feel like see the slight rough edge. Sort of lack of polish. The one that I want to call out is the badge that lets you swing with your umbrella.
Oh yeah, the hook shot.
The hook shot.
Yeah,
because
I think the game even specifically refers to it as the hook shot.
I mean, I would believe
they're not hiding it.
It does work differently than the hook shot does.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like the grapple beam in Metroid.
Yes. And your grapple beam in this game, which is an umbrella, is like, love the idea. I love the design of the levels that utilize it, but then the actual execution feels really stiff, and it's very easy to just like accidentally go not at all where you're intended to go with it. It's very, I don't know. I didn't love using it, but I did love that it was there.
Yeah. I kind of totally disagree. I really like the implementation of it and think that it is pretty easy to use. But I have played the game 3 times now, so I maybe my first playthrough wasn't as smooth as I'm remembering.
It wasn't necessarily that it was difficult to use, it's that the result of using it was not ever what I wanted it to be. Like, I feel like you jump and then you grab with the thing, and the crucial purpose that it serves is that it also refreshes your double jump when you do it, so that you can like cross huge gaps with it. But you will swing on it. Like, there are parts like the worst level in the game where you have to like race to the end. Well, okay, no, they're two bad levels, and they're like side by side.
Yeah.
And the one that I'm talking about now that is not as bad
is the train escape.
Because it is very unclear what you're supposed to be doing most of the time, and shit's just exploding. So like your next platform, and like some of that is good. You want a little bit of uncertainty, but then there are times when I do know what I'm doing, but like the visual explosions that are happening all the time are throwing me off. But there are sequences in that where you have to jump between hooks in order to get to places, and I would find that I either would jump and like go way over the next hook,
really,
which is confusing to do because then you don't know what you're supposed to do next. Because like you can kind of save that, but it's not the intended way, so it's hard to fix it. Or I would try and jump to it and just like not make it and fall to my death.
That's weird.
Yeah, I think the second one I fixed later because it was still new to me.
Yeah.
I went back and played it, it might not have been as much finishing.
If I had to make a guess, I think it might be like a player agency expectation kind of thing, because you hook onto it and you just let it happen.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really control the swing, and I think maybe I can remember that being a thing where like I felt like I needed to do inputs like to make it work, and you really just kind of hit X and it just shoot. It's like it flicks you.
Right.
It's basically how it works. It's like you hook it and it's like whoop,
That-
pops you out.
That was not my experience. I thought you could change direction.
You can, but like
Okay.
if it's designed in such a way that pretty much any time you use them, you just jump and it just letting it swing you straight works every time. And like you'll go right to the next one and then you just swing and like you don't need to really do anything.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to do shit all
Yeah,
the time.
like I
with
think that's the friction. It's like it's more of a hands-off kind of thing than you think it is.
Right. And yeah, so that's like, and trying to time like when you jump off of it is like the natural thing that you're going to do with a swinging mechanic. And I feel like it required a lot of sort of like practice and not just like with the mechanic, with the individual jumps to know exactly where you're supposed to go if it isn't as smooth as just go as far as you can, which is what it normally is.
Yeah, I think like my biggest friction with it is not being able to see the next like grapple point, because there are times when you'll swing and because of the swing the next point you're supposed to grab onto isn't visible to you, but like you hear the sound effect and like you need to just hit the X button,
Right.
even though you can't see it. So it is kind of a trust mechanic.
Yeah.
I think that's what you got to accept about it.
Which, I mean, on the other hand, like, the failure system of this game is pretty generous, all things considered. Like, there are checkpoints, some of which just aren't labeled. Like, some of them, it'll say checkpoint, and then other ones, it just is a checkpoint. They don't tell you. But, like, you never lose that much.
No.
Unless
Unless you're doing like a purple rift level.
Right, yeah.
And you die, you have to go back to the beginning.
Yes, unless that, which is, a little bit worse. Also, lampposts act as checkpoints in the blue rift levels. That's a Coda move. It's a very deep cut reference.
Right.
But yeah, that's that. I'm surprised we got that much discussion out of that particular mechanic, because I had two other ones I wanted to talk about that I hate completely.
Okay.
Which are the bounce on shit mechanic, which is impossible to see. Once you get one, you're fine. It's just automatic and does it for you. But they always place them way too close. And maybe my depth perception is bad, or maybe it's something specific about red balloons. Because I actually had less trouble with the sandbags, but like infinite trouble with the balloons.
Yeah, that's another one.
On them.
Yeah, that's another one that doesn't ever give me any problems. It probably is like a depth perception thing.
My other one, which is...
And there's another thing in platformers, I think, where you never want to make the smallest jump that you can.
Right.
And they usually space the object you're supposed to hop on is like your smallest jump to get to it, and you tend to overshoot it.
Yeah. You 100% over. I had more success with the balloons jumping to the second one.
You definitely are that type of player. But anyway, your other mechanic
is the dive attack, which I learned something way too late about the dive attack that I feel like should have been more openly tutorialized. The way the dive attack works is if you're holding the square button, you just do it when you can.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that until the get all of the spores mission of the last level.
You jump on the spiders?
The fucking spider. That, I literally died so many times on, like, more than anything else in the whole game. That stupid jump to the spider, because I would press the X button and just nothing would happen. And I would just fall and die. Yeah.
I think I had a similar problem my first playthrough, but like any other, like on this playthrough, I just instinctively knew to just mash the X button.
Yep.
I didn't know holding it worked, but
maybe
it's the same thing. They probably both work. But yeah, you had to have the input in whenever the window to press it comes up, and it doesn't always flash on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It fucking sucked ass, and I hated it. And I basically never wanted to do the dive attack at all.
It is a little like... It feels like a half-baked idea, at least as far as... I like it better for platforming. Like, once you get used to it, it's actually pretty reliable, I think. But I don't like it, like, for combat. This is a 3D platformer, so there isn't really much combat, and it makes sense that these ideas aren't as fleshed out. But it's just like a nothing mechanic. Like, you just jump up in the air, and you hit the X button, and you just hit the guy's head, and you're in no danger. Like, it's like a... too good to just like jump around and not take any damage from regular enemies because you're just jumping on their head scot-free.
Yeah. It's similar in a way to like... Yeah, okay. I'm trying to like put this together. This game has a similar problem with combat that Mario does, because neither game make any sense to have combat in them, really, but they have to have enemies, and you have to have ways to defeat them. Now, Mario, when he was just a plumber dude, and was rendered in 2 dimensions, had this elegant solution of jumping on an enemy, because jumping on an enemy uses the jump button, which is great. That's what you want to be doing in your platformer. And the... like, act of attacking them is a risk reward because you want to jump on top of them, but if you miss them, then you could potentially be hit by them because their hitbox is usually just a thing around them.
Right.
Very simple, easy to understand. The problem when it goes to 3D is that jumping on things is a lot less reliable, but I think still works. I think it's still a fine way of killing things in a 3D platformer, because they're like platforms. You just have to make the enemies a little bit bigger.
Yeah. I think they worry about your problem with the red balloons, where people are going to just miss the jumps.
Yeah, and get hit a whole bunch.
Yeah, get frustrated.
Yeah. So what both games did is that they gave their respective protagonists a 3-hit combo melee attack, and all enemies just die in 1 hit for the most part. Like, there are a few that you actually have to use multiple attacks on in Hat in Time, but it feels weird to have it there and is rarely used. And so what they did was they took the homing attack from the 3D Sonic games, which is not a source of inspiration you really want to draw from, and they just put it in. They're like, do the homing attack, but it's slow now. Yeah, I agree. It feels too safe, and the combat in this game is fine.
Yeah, I think I would have been totally fine with it if it was just like the umbrella 3-hit combo thing.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have mentioned it at all. Like, the weird homing attack is just like, I feel like I see how that came into the game, but like, I probably would have cut it.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's just hindsight.
I mean, there's like this use that it has where it like takes people out of invulnerable states, which is I don't know, like that probably could have been designed around as well. Like the mafia guys, you basically never need to kill them in any level except for when it's like specifically like
a story thing.
Yeah. So the fact that that enemy type takes 3 hits and then is invulnerable until you hit them with the dive feels unnecessary. Its use in boss battles is a lot more because they could actually put phases in that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. But yeah, it's a weird mechanic, and I don't know how I feel about it.
I actually think I kind of forgot about boss fights while we were talking about that somehow. I actually like the way it's used in boss fights.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about boss fights, because I actually do have a bit to say about them.
Sure.
But do we want to take a break first?
Yes.
After the break.
I was just going to say after the break, but decided not to.
Dude, fuck those balloons, dude. They're so hard to land. Welcome back. We're going to talk about the parts of the combat that make sense and are good, in contrast to the last part where we talked about the parts of the combat that weren't as good. God, I really want to. I just talked rapid fire 3 things in a row that I didn't like about this game. Those are the only 3 things, and one other thing that I'll get to.
Yeah, I have some nitpicky things that I could complain about, like a pedantic asshole.
Yeah, I mostly just wanted to get those out of the way because, and we're about to talk about the bosses, which is a great example of this. I think a lot of the design is fucking smart as hell. With very few exceptions, almost everything about the bosses is stuff that I actually really liked.
Mm-hmm. Which is impressive, because not all 3D platformers have good bosses.
I would say most don't.
Yeah, a lot of them don't even really try. Mm-hmm. You look at Mario games, specifically, 64 and Sunshine kind of have them early, and then they are just
just kind of drop off.
Yeah, then they stop having them.
Yeah, because if you look, the boss of Rico Bay is you clean teeth. It doesn't really count as a boss in the traditional sense. You're not fighting anything.
Come on, Chad, you mean Noki Bay?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, sorry.
Not Rico Harbor.
Right, yeah, Rico Harbor. Yeah, Noki Bay. Yeah, I like that game too. Shit. Anyway, I'm a fraud.
Yep, I'm gonna have to revoke your gamer card.
God, I just got that card. But no. So the bosses in this game, they're weirdly spread out in a way that is strange.
Yeah, you can kind of spread out the whole game in a weird way. The pacing.
Yeah.
If you don't play everything straight through, which, I mean, there's no reason why you would, necessarily, but...
Well, there are instances where you can't. There's a level in Mafia Town, which I didn't mention. Is it weird that they're the Mafia? It doesn't make any sense as far as I can tell.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It's funny, but there's a lot of, if you start looking into that detail, there are a lot of things that don't make sense about it, because the Mafia Town is based on that one city in Greece that everything's based on, that the map in Overwatch. Yeah, but they're Russian.
Yes,
they're a Russian mafia,
which is an established pop culture mafia, but is not by a long shot the most common one. They're not Italian.
Yeah, and they're cooks.
Yeah, they work for a fishery.
Yeah, and the Purple Rift slideshow explains it a little bit, that they came to the island for I don't remember why, but they are not originally from there.
Right.
But it's just there's a whole lot of, it's not cohesive at all. It's just kind of what would be funny. It's basically kind of what it feels like.
It's weird because there's such a thematic tie in all of the other levels, and then Mafia Town is just very wacky and happy-go-lucky, make no sense.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that cartoon vibe that I was talking about earlier. It just kind of feels whatever sticks, funny mafia dudes is testing well with children right now. Just put that in.
But yeah, there's a level in Mafia Town, to go back to the sentence I started 8 fucking minutes ago, that you can't do
until the end of the game.
Yeah. And it's just one mission. It's a mission that is post boss, essentially. And it doesn't unlock a new mission. You just do it and then it's over.
Yeah, they wanted to keep that achievement from you for Mafia Town all clear until the end of the game.
Exactly. And then some of the other levels are like that, and the other ones aren't. The Deadbird Studio doesn't have a weird secret extra level.
Well, yes, it does.
Well, it's the very poorly concealed secret level.
It's more of a surprise than it is a secret.
Yeah,
and it does. You can, if you play straight through, you'll get to the train escape, and you won't have the hook shot yet. Right. So. Depending on how you play, you can run into little speed bumps like that.
Yeah. But Mafia Town has a boss, Deadbird Studio has a boss, and
Subcon
has a boss.
Yeah, it's 2 of them.
It does have 2 of them. And then there's a like final boss.
Yeah.
But Alpine Skyline does not have like a regular boss.
No, it has like a climactic final mission thing that's different than a boss.
Which would be the best mission in the whole game if you didn't have to jump on those spiders. So aside from that, it's interesting that they kind of spread it out that way, and they end up being really far apart because you can do the Mafia boss like immediately when you get it, and then you have to get other items in order to complete Deadward Studio, so you have to play a little bit of the other one. And one of the bosses is open right from the start, but then the other one you have to complete all the other levels to get to. And then the final boss will open up probably before you've even fought all of the bosses.
Yeah, you need just a little bit more than half of the timepieces to beat the game.
Yeah, I think it's like 25 of 40. So
in the base game,
yeah. Which is what we should clarify, I guess. We are just talking about the base game here. You have played the DLC, but
most of it, yeah. And it's weird. I just found this out while Googling that the DLC is only on PC and weirdly Switch.
Okay.
They released the version that came out on the Switch has the DLC, but PlayStation 4 and Xbox One don't have it yet. Which is weird.
Yeah, it's super strange. Because I played the PlayStation 4 version.
Yeah, and that's what I did initially too, and then didn't realize that I couldn't play the DLC on PlayStation 4, so I had to play through... I didn't have to, but I did play through the game again on PC just to play it.
Do they have bosses in the DLC chapters?
I beat Seal the Deal. It does not have a boss.
Okay.
It has more like a climactic final mission. And I'm assuming the other one, Yakuza Metro, does, because it has like an evil character that's kind of like presides over the area. Is the Yakuza boss?
Yeah, they're boss-esque.
Yes,
for sure.
and I imagine that she has to be one. So, but can't confirm.
Yeah, but the actual bosses that we did that I played and that we're going to talk about are the Mafia boss. Is the boss different in Deadward Studio depending on who wins the like award?
You do fight the other... Whoever wins is the one you end up fighting, so it can be either one. And I do think there are little differences to maybe like one or two things, but it's mostly the same. Same fight. I have done both of them.
Okay, cool. And then Snatcher is the boss of the... of Subcom Force.
And there's the Outhouse as well, who's like more of a mini boss.
Yeah.
They use that almost as like a training wheels version for the final boss. Like it has a lot of similar mechanics.
Yeah. And there's stuff to it that's like, there are definitely parts of each of the bosses that I found like kind of unclear. Like you have to do a little bit of trial and error to get, but they felt like when you went in that they were unbeatable monstrosities, and then they were never really all that hard. And the unclear guessing game aspect of them is incredibly true to the genre in a way that is like hard to describe, but is like very like you feel that when you're in it. You're like, I remember playing Banjo-Kazooie and I didn't know how to fucking hurt Gruntilda. Like it just makes sense that it's there because of the inspirations of the game. And I ended up being a pretty big fan of all of them. They were the challenge that I was wanting, I think, more than I thought.
Yeah, and I feel like I agree with that entirely. Like, I remember the bosses giving me trouble my first playthrough, at least a couple of them. But I've played the game 3 times now, and like second 2 playthroughs, the bosses are like tissue paper when you know what you're doing. So, yeah, like they strike a nice balance where they feel real challenging the first time, and that's what you want. It
is, yeah. And it's a weird thing to want, because part of what you're asking for is to be lied to by the game. Like you're gonna like, oh, how am I ever gonna do this? And then you just do it, and you're like, that's how I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, like a magic trick, almost like it making something seem imposing, but then it's actually manageable.
Yeah, Yeah, it does a really good job. I think honestly the worst thing about the boss design is that the majority of them have like some kind of mid-fight bit where they talk to you, and it's not skippable in the traditional sense. Like you just always have to see it, and like when you're doing something a bunch of times, it gets kind of
I
frustrating.
know there are some cutscenes, not all, that you can skip by holding down the X button, but I don't know. I don't remember like if the mid boss ones are skippable or not.
Yeah, some of them are, some of them aren't. The in the penguin guy boss, he like DJ Grooves
/ the conductor,
who I was going to call MC Penguin, which is like basically
MC Penguin, DJ Grooves,
kind of the same.
That was his beta name, was MC Penguin.
Has like this sequence where you sit down and have a conversation with him, and he asks you if he can just keep the timepiece. And that, like, the only way to get through that is just like mash. Whereas like Snatcher's opening sequence can be skipped, but like the middle sequence can't. And Snatcher also has a part where he does a thing where it fades to black, and he shows up, and then there are two copies, and one of them's a cardboard cutout, and you have to look at one of them. And I had no idea what the game was asking me to do, because it totally changes your control. And then it just like, I just lucked into hitting the right one occasionally after I figured out I had to hit them. Up until that point, I was just treating it as like a one life I lost immediately. It was very weird. I don't know.
No, yeah, that definitely isn't clear, like the messaging on that. I'll agree with that. But it's one of those things, though, like replaying this game, there's a lot of this kind of stuff where it's like once you like click with it, like you can really get into a flow state with this game. And the bosses are one that's like, especially the Snatcher boss fight is one where like you're going through all the phases, and then like it goes dark, and then he comes up, and then you swing to the one and you hit it, and it's like it just feels so snappy and like just feels so good when you like know what you're doing.
I never did know what I was doing.
Exactly, but like if first time it's a little rough, but like if you went back and played it, like it's so satisfying to do the bosses.
This might be a dumb question then. How do you, and not at all related to boss design generally, how do you know which one you're supposed to hit?
It's hard for me to say, because I feel there's visual cues, but I can't like think of what exactly they are off the top of my head. I think it's the way his face looks.
Okay.
But like I do it without even thinking. Like I just like can tell, and I just do it.
All right, because I never did figure it out.
The spirit of Hat Kid fills me, and I know which one to hit.
But yeah, and then that's the other interesting thing is that the game, its progression is based on you getting additional power-ups, and the power-ups all play a part in the bosses, except in Snatchers they take it away, and I think that's a great decision. Like he
taking
eats your hat at the beginning, so it's just purely platform plus your regular combo attack, and that's it. Like just like it does enough to differentiate it from everything else that I think all of them are really well designed. Except for that stupid clone thing that I don't get.
Right.
So there you go. Did you have notes on the bosses at all?
Actually, no. I didn't. But I think I said everything I wanted to say on them.
That makes
sense.
Like
they're good, and they're especially like they're challenging on a first playthrough, and then on a subsequent playthrough, they're fun to execute. Like, you know, I think they hit a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Especially impressive, I think, for like a first time attempt at like 3D platformer bosses, which tend to not be very good most of the time.
Sure.
But one thing you brought up there, if we want to transition to something else, were the power-ups, the different hats. And while I largely like the abilities they give you, this is one of my nitpicky complaints with it is the visual design of them. While they look cool, I feel like it doesn't have what I've called that Nintendo quality that we talked about on the Plants vs. Zombies episode, where in that game, when you look at the plants and the zombies, you get like a decent idea of what they do just by looking at them.
Yeah.
I think that's a weakness of this game, A Hat in Time, where the brew hat, it's like a witch's hat, and what it gives you is basically like a grenade.
Yeah.
Like, those don't really connect in any way, and then you can use them to blow up these glowy boxes, which you also wouldn't necessarily put that together.
Nope.
There's no direct correlation between those. They aren't tutorialized, like something like the hook shot is. Like, it has its own mission.
Right.
And I forgot to mention this when we were talking about influences, but there's a little bit of Wind Waker in this. It's specifically the hook shot mission is designed like a Zelda dungeon, where you go into the room and the gate closes behind you and you have to solve a puzzle with a new item to get out.
Yep.
I felt like the hats needed that, but they decided to make the yarn a collectible, which I like that decision. So they couldn't tutorialize them because they wanted them to be, like it's...
Yeah, because they don't know when you're going to have it.
They want to have their cake and eat it too a little, I think. And like the ground pound, like the beanie, it turns you into ice. That's unintuitive, and it makes it really boring because you only ever use it on those little snowflake pads.
Yeah.
And even like the mask, like the fox mask, you don't know that's gonna phase in platforms from another dimension. Like they're not signaled at all.
Yeah.
And I think what could have saved it is better visual theming.
Yes. And other things.
Well, yeah, there are other solutions, but that would go such a long way. If they wanted to keep it the way it is now, like the brew hat, while I like a cool witch's hat, it's probably my favorite walking around hat. It's cool. Make it like a bomb. Like, it's like a little hat that looks like a bomb and it has a wick.
Right.
Or like a conductor's hat that's got like 2 sticks of dynamite on it. Or like something that makes sense is like, this throws things that explode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and it's compounded by the fact that your primary, like, extra cosmetic rewards just change what the hat looks like.
Yep.
Like, the ice hat in its default state doesn't really look like...
It's like a bear.
Yeah.
It's got teddy bear ears on it.
Yeah, and it's like a blue knit cap. But, like, by the end of the game, it had been, like, a Santa hat, and it was also, like, a weird spiky hat.
Yeah, I got one that I really like that makes it like a helix, which doesn't make any sense for the ice hat.
Yeah,
but it's cool.
And the fact that it's like an ice hat, there's so many things in video games, even like specifically looking at video games, that you associate with ice and like ice doing things. Ground pound isn't one. That's a brand new association.
It's weird to me that they decided they wanted to make the ground pound, like they wanted to include a ground pound but make it so limiting.
Yeah, it doesn't. I never used it outside of the traversal. Like, it's a super jump.
There's no other use for it.
You can't, like, stomp on an enemy or
I've
anything?
never tried it. I don't think... that might work.
There's, like, no reason to do it because your regular attacks are way more effective.
Yeah, like the homing attack would just be better. Mm-hmm. That's a really bizarre design decision.
But yeah, the Dweller Mask, which I've already said is my favorite.
It is cool, one. Yeah. But you wouldn't know what it does.
The first thing I tried to do with it, because of all of the minion characters, not Imagination Studios minions.
In Subcon.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Dwellers, who are presumably the things that the mask is modeled after. And like, they're so hard to talk to. Blah blah blah. I was like, do I put the Dweller mask on
to talk to dwellers,
and then I can talk to dwellers and they'll like tell me shit? But no, it's way better than that. But the game gives you no indication of what that is. It says that you can see through the eyes of a dweller, and it's not until like way later there's like a guy who's like, it's amazing that dwellers can't even see things like this. And they pass right through them, and you're like, yeah. But the actual effect is fucking amazing for a platformer mechanic, because it's like this button that switches what thing is going to be your platform and what isn't.
It's similar to the mechanic in Guacamelee that like shifts the realities.
I just like shifting realities.
Yeah,
man.
it's cool.
I like fucking Link to the Past.
Yep, Link Between Worlds.
Link Between Worlds.
It's a classic. Light World, Dark World.
But yeah, I think all the levels that utilize it are really fucking well designed.
The Twilight Bell.
Twilight Bell is
the
amazing.
standout. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. What was I gonna say? Yeah. Oh, the sprint cap is the one that stands out. It's like you know what that does when you get it. It's like a hat with wings on it, a visor. Oh, in one of the DLCs, they introduced just a baseball cap.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this feels like it was missing from the main game, that none of the hats are a baseball cap.
Yeah.
Because especially seeing Hat Kid in the baseball cap with the cape, and it's just like, this seems like a classic kid thing.
Yeah, like a costume that a kid would put on and be like, I'm going to go save the world.
Yeah, Captain Baseball. But yeah, no, the Dweller Mask is great. And I like that you have to... They gate one of the relic rooms behind a wall that you have to use the Dweller Mask to get past.
Yeah. What's a relic room?
Like the rooms where you put the relics, like on the stands.
Oh yeah, the one that's like in the Alpine Skyline area.
Yeah,
is one of the weird like star walls, which kind of sounds like Narwhal.
That Star Wall is a game actually.
Oh, that's about a space narwhal.
Yeah, it's like an arcadey game, I think. Anyway,
I'm apparently not the only person who's thought of that. But yeah. So those are the hats. I agree with you completely on the visual design and the fact that like they change, which makes it harder to cycle to the ones that you need at any given time.
They either needed stronger visual theming to communicate what they do, or they should have been tutorialized. Yeah. I think.
Even if it was just like as you pick it up, like okay, so when you get when a timepiece shows up on the map, it creates this like temporal bubble that when you walk into, it changes the music and everything like slows down and shit. And then you can jump up and grab the thing. When you get a new hat, pop one of them up and be like, look, now it's the tutorial area.
I think they wanted it to be like a completely player-driven curiosity thing. Where you make the hats yourself and then you have to put them on and figure out what they do. Like I think they wanted that to be part of the experience, but then I know if you're a player like me, that just makes them super easy to ignore. Like you'll get the hat and you'll be like, well, I already had this and this and this that I was doing, so I'll look at the hat later. Like I do that kind of stuff in games all the time. So if you don't like put it in front of me and are like, hey, this is it and you could use it for this, like I'll put it off and it'll be like a whole level later. I'm like, oh yeah, I got that hat.
Yeah, that's basically the opposite of me.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, you tend to explore your options a bit more than I do.
Yeah, like I was actively counting down once how much yarn I needed to make a hat. In every other instance, I just had the yarn as soon as I discovered it. So, with the exception of the time stop hat, which takes like a huge amount of yarn to make. Which I also think is a cool hat.
Yeah.
I like the idea. The way that it's described and the animation made me feel like it would kill you to use. Like it like x-rays you. So you see like your heart beating and it plays this ominous noise and it's like like in the description of the hat, it's like, we're all gonna die at some point. I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, and I like that it gives you like an advantage on the final boss if you have it. You can slow her down with the time stop hat.
You can beat the final boss without the time stop hat?
Yeah.
I didn't even try. I was like, this is clearly because she does the fucking Dragon Ball Z like
teleporty thing.
Yeah, like moving real
She's
fast
got
thing.
vulnerable times.
Well, yeah, she does, but I just assumed that you needed the time stop hat to hit her.
No.
So I guess I was wrong. But yeah, that was actually, we didn't talk about the final boss at all, but the final boss is the one exception, I think, to the rule of bosses, where it feels like a victory run boss is more than like an actual challenge.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because I was like time stopping all over the place.
Now, I don't think the time stop hat makes it like too easy. Like they didn't Majora's Mask it.
Right. I thought that might be the case.
It just gives you a nice advantage. You're rewarded for getting all the yarn.
You are kind of Majora's Masked in that because you don't need to even play the last level to get enough timepieces to unlock the final boss. It's a light Majora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Major or minor?
Exactly.
No, you were saying you're the opposite of me, and you were counting down to get the hats and things.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just it. Like I was just waiting for the to get enough yarn to make the hat. I wanted to see what the hat did.
Mean, I was like excited by the hats and liked them. It's just like the way, like how casually and like non-played up they were, made it easy for me to be like, okay, like I'm gonna finish this, like, you know, because you're in the middle of doing something when you make it, and like that always put it on the back burner for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The sprint hat did not have a lot of utility.
No, that's one thing I was thinking about on this most recent playthrough, and it's like even got an upgrade that makes it a scooter, which seems cool, but like as we were talking, a lot of the levels are like vertical. Like Subcon's the only real open level.
And it's the one that has a mission that specifically uses the scooter.
Yeah, and like because like Deadbird is a lot of linear story levels, and Alpine Skyline's a bunch of little islands. So you don't really ever have the opportunity to really use it.
Right. It is a shame with Deadbird the way that was designed, because probably my favorite thematically, like I love the idea of Deadbird Studios as a level.
It was my standout favorite the first time I played the game because I didn't know what to expect from it, and like Deadbird Studio certainly wasn't it. Like, you know, what I was expecting, and Murder on the Owl Express is maybe my favorite individual mission. So like it really stood out as a favorite, and I like it. The secret, air quotes, final level was really cool to find and stuff. So, but on further playthroughs, I think Subcon is the best level.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. But
Subcon is definitely a standout. Deadbird ended up being like my least favorite level.
I think Mafia Town is maybe my least favorite, but
I think it's very subjective, especially. It depends on what you like doing a lot. The thing that killed Deadbird for me is that there's just a lot of like corridor indoor stuff.
Yeah.
And I just find that generally less fun.
Yeah, I like the change of pace though. I like the amount of variety this game has.
Yeah. It serves its purpose and I don't hate it. I only hate the parade level. Because it's just so slow, and everything bad that happens to you doesn't feel like there was anything you could have done about it.
Something can go wrong really easily.
And then it's just a comedy of errors as you try and correct.
I do really like the marching band thing, though, because they bring it back so many times. Like, it's in one of the Rift levels. You have the marching band following you, and it comes in the boss.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good as like a tutorial for a mechanic that they're gonna reuse. It just goes on for like a little bit too long.
The actual parade mission itself isn't great.
Also, the fact that the rooftops get electrified was not made clear to me, and like I fell for it like 4 times. They do
have a little countdown on them, like a 3, 2, 1 marker thing. But it's hard to see, and you don't know what's going to happen the first time.
Yeah, hard to see is a great description of Deadbird Studios as a whole. There's like a whole level where you're like, I think it's the secret final level where you're like
dark.
going through the back, and you're like in these like storage facilities, and you have to do platforming on like metal platforms, and the background is like steel grating, and it's basically just like a flat gray plane on the television. I just have to guess where things are. It's a really questionable choice of like backgrounds. It doesn't make things stand out.
Yeah, could have afforded to crank that contrast knob a bit, brighten it up.
Yep. That's better. I still like the level though. Like it was still fun. It was still funny. There's a lot of interesting shit going on, and it's like it like heavily uses stealth mechanics, which could be better, but also are not bad. Like I do enjoy them because it's still a platforming challenge most of the time. It's about like getting under and over things that can see you, as opposed to just like walking slowly.
And they're not like an instant failure,
right?
Like they have like a little bit of time for it to like fill all the way up for it to actually boot you. Or make you like,
and it doesn't like start you over. It just sort of like
set
deals
you
the
back
damage
a little
and sends
bit.
You back. Yeah, which isn't bad.
Yeah. You want to talk about badges, specifically the badge merchant?
Yeah. Yeah, we should actually talk about that fucking weird thing.
Okay, so to anyone listening to this, or you, Chad, I feel like the badge merchant reminds me of a character from something, and I don't know what it is. Like, his big red shirt and the purple pants, and, like, the red shirt's got the belts around it. Like, I feel like another character wears a very similar outfit to that, and I cannot think of what it is, and I might just be crazy. But if anyone knows, tell us on the Discord. Check out our Discord server. Because it bugs me.
Yeah. Like, almost like it might be... Because, okay...
It feels like it's like a reference or something.
Or it could be, like, supposed to be that character, but they've, like...
I doubt that, but I do... It feels referential to me.
I feel like that's the explanation, though, for why he's all weird and glitchy.
Glitchy, yeah.
Like, it's that character, but he's, like, been through a meat grinder. Digital meat grinder.
He's... Sans Undertale.
He's Sans Undertale, is what we're trying to say.
But no, yeah, I love his voice.
Yeah.
Like, the first time you find the badge merchant, you're like, what the fuck? Like, because, like, he shows up in, like, Mafia done, like, the first level, and you're like, what is this guy?
He feels very out of place here.
And he never feels... If there's ever a Hat in Time 2, we need to go to the world that the badge merchant is from. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I can see that.
But anyway, he's just a very weird design, and I want to know if he's a reference to something. But do you have anything to say on him or badges themselves?
The one thing that I mean, we covered him as far as, like, because there's very little to know about the character. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting that he shows up. His music is good. Also, he crashed my game one time, which felt appropriate.
Oh, yeah? I never had the PS4 version crash.
It was weird. I think it happened when the pawns were flying into the thing. It just was like, done.
On PC, it has, like, some stutteriness, like, when it loads, weirdly. And that's caused a couple of crashes, but I never had the console version crash.
Yeah. Yeah, I only had it happen once. It did make me very paranoid for a lot of the rest of the game.
I mean, everything auto-saves now, so you don't have to worry about it, really.
Yeah. But the only thing I could think of on badges that is, like, I feel like I want to make this a PSA where I'm like, to all developers of games with collectibles, stop making the magnet pickup something you have to choose to equip. Like, if you don't want to have it immediately, make it an upgrade that's like a permanent thing. Don't make me have to switch out to it whenever I'm just doing exploration, because it's just way too much of a convenience to just ignore it. Because if you're ignoring it, you're basically saying, I'm going to be very precise about coins, which is not something that you really want to be doing.
I feel like I kind of sympathize with the developers on this one, because, like, I can imagine there being people that wouldn't want that to be a permanent thing.
Who?
I don't know. Like, I'm going to do a no pawns run of a Hat in Time. I don't know. You can't do that. You have to unlock the levels with pawns.
That's true.
But I don't know. I could just see a scenario where someone wouldn't want to have it on.
Okay.
Like, I think abilities, like upgrades, should be equipable and unequivocal. Like, when we were... yeah, that's the right... that sounded like it wasn't a real word when I said it. Equipable. Anyway... when we played Symphony of the Night, I was like, this is fucking amazing. I can turn all my abilities off and on.
Right.
Like, I'm a big fan of the badge kind of approach to it.
I like that. Like, I don't want there to...
You should be able to have more of a higher max so that you can always just leave that one on.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is I feel like
you should
most
be able to
of the
equip
other
them all.
ones... Well, I think the other ones are strong enough that you want to limit them. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't want them to just have everything equipped at the same time, because then you have all of the abilities at the same time. Where I think that the magnet pickup thing should be a separate on-off toggle that you can change if you want, but is on by default.
I've solved it.
You solved
through
it.
my genius. You have one pin that is like, you can choose to make one pin like a permanent.
Like, it's like a consumable. You say, like, this one's my permanent badge, and then you still have the 3 slots for the other ones.
No, like, you put your favorite one. It's like how in Psychonauts, both of us just always left the
Levitate on
levitate on. It's like you just have like your number one slot, and it's like I put this in here, it gets priority, it never gets like swapped out for anything else automatically when I get a new pin.
Right.
It's like that one's my pin that I like, and it's always on.
Sure. There should
Slot.
definitely be some solution.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a workable one. But like it's weird to me that I have to choose between like the hook shot and
That one also
conveniently picking stuff up. Yeah, the hook shot should
felt
never
like it should
really
be
go away.
that feels like an upgrade that should just be permanent.
Yeah. And like the ones that like the map makes sense, you want to toggle that on and off because it's huge.
I've actually in all 3 of my playthroughs never bought that.
Wait, no, you don't buy it, or do you buy it?
You buy it from the Mafia guy
Yeah, the
in
Mafia jar.
Yeah. Because I don't know, it just felt like so unbelievably unnecessary to me.
Well, it definitely is, unless you were trying to just pick up all the relics. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the point of it, is just there as, like, a completionist thing.
Yeah.
Like, I like that they give you that.
I feel like they're not hard enough to find that you need it.
Well, I mean, some of them you just don't. Like, in Subcon, specifically, is a great place to use it, because it'll direct you where you need, what quadrant of the map you need to be in, because it's so huge.
They actually, something I learned from doing multiple playthroughs is, like, the locations of relics can be, like, somewhat, like, not randomized, but, like, you can get them, like, there's certain chests, I think, that are tagged to be, like, they could be relic chests, depending on how, like, many you've already gotten. Because, like, there were ones that I got in one level on one playthrough, and then I got them in a different level in another playthrough. So, like, depending on how many you've already gotten, so like they're not fixed, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
They're like it's like a dynamic system in place,
which is presumably there so that you can't look up a guide to be like, where's the tinfoil hat cow?
Right.
Like, that's the one I know I'm missing.
So as long as you explore and you're finding enough stuff that's like off the beaten path, like you're just gonna get them all.
Well, until you get to like the last 2 or whatever, where you don't know what level they're in or what.
Well,
so that the map is like a checkbox for that.
Yeah, I mean, they could just be in any level, so you just have to. They're not hard to find, in my opinion. You don't need that pin.
I'm just saying it's a good existing badge.
No, I wouldn't take it out.
Yeah.
I just think personally it feels unnecessary.
It's like in the THPS 1 and 2 remaster, they added a gap list, which I don't think was in the original 1 and 2. It was in later games, that tells you which gaps that you've gotten. That is the relic pin. Nobody needs that. I need that. But nobody sensible wants that, really. Mm-hmm. It's just an inclusion for people who are trying to complete the game and don't want to, like, spend a million years just wandering around emptiness because they have all the other collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little bit off topic here.
We sure are.
Do we have anything else specific you want to talk about?
I kind of want to talk about the length of the game. It is like a game, but it's like a freshman effort. Mm-hmm. As we said, development very like open and casual, and it kind of had humble beginnings and grew into like a bigger thing. And I also praised it earlier in comparison to Ukulele for managing its scope well and delivering like a higher quality thing all across it. But like it does really leave you wanting more, like if you just play the base game. And I think that's something that they've done a good job with in actually keeping up with the game and releasing DLC, because playing it with the 2 new levels makes it feel like a much more whole experience. Makes it feel even weirder the final boss opens up so early, but that aside, it just makes it feel like the game that they wanted to make. Like it feels complete with the extra content. And they also added, after you beat Subcon, the Snatcher will just be in your room, hanging out at the edge of the pillow pit, and he gives you, like, challenge missions. And then also up in the mail room, that's an actual thing now, where you can access mods and stuff.
Okay. I don't know if I agree or not. I feel like this game felt like an appropriate length. I do agree that it is weird in any circumstance how early the final boss opens up. Like, I feel like it should have been pushed to like 30. I finished this game pretty casually, all things considered. I didn't go out of my way for a lot of stuff, but I did intentionally beat all of the main quests. And doing that, and just that, really, I ended up with an 80% completion, like at the end credits, which feels strange to me. Like, and admittedly, I didn't buy like the bad pins and stuff. Like, I don't know how much, if that at all, adds to completion percentage.
I think it just counts. The only thing that counts towards that is the amount of timepieces you have.
Okay, so that, well, presumably relics or
relics
balls
factor into it.
Yeah.
Well, relics all give you timepieces, so.
Oh, because the relics open the relic rifts. And
yeah.
The rifts are, yeah, makes sense. But yeah, so either way, like, it felt like I was very much done with the game when I finished it. Like, I'd pretty much done that. And I didn't feel like the game was too short. I certainly didn't feel like it was too long. But I also feel like with 2 extra levels, I would feel the same way. Which I feel like this is the type of game that you put in exactly as much as you want into it in a weird way.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
even Banjo-Kazooie feels too long now. Like, I feel like Banjo is like a great game when you're 10 because you just play Banjo that's what you do for a year.
Right.
But now that's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. Like, I think it's satisfying. Like, my first playthrough, like, I thought I liked it, and I felt, satisfied at the end. But, like, I really feel like you get your first level, you feel like you get your legs, and then the second level is very, like, narrative and, like, a different sort of thing. And then you have Subcon, which is really good, and then Alpine Skyline, which does a different thing. It's like, it really feels like it just is like kind of culminating and coming into its own by the 4th level, and it feels like it could do a bit more for you with like another level or 2. Like, I remember finishing it and thinking, like, I really wish that had like one more level.
And now it does.
And now it does. Yeah, now it does too. But yeah, like, not a big criticism or anything. It's just like in an ideal world, I think it just kind of, I think, got going, like firing on, like delivering on its max potential, and could have benefited from like letting that run free into another level.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, it could have maximized its potential a little more with one more level, is the simple way to say that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about
and
this
I don't
want to
overstate
things.
That.
Yeah. Well, the thing that this game does, though, the reason that I agree with you and also agree that it isn't a huge criticism is because we've talked about this effect in a couple of other places before. Like, we talked about how Monument Valley felt like every level was just sort of like an idea, and they didn't fully expand on what your abilities actually were. And The Unfinished Swan is a game that introduces a bunch of cool concepts but doesn't take any of them to their like full possibility space. This game feels like it doesn't feel like the whole game is a tutorial for nothing, which is really the important thing. Like, the game plays like a full game all the way through, and because of that, it made it less impactful that it just sort of ends kind of abruptly. But I do agree. I think a lot of times when you're talking about games that have good pacing, you're talking about games that have like a real snappy sort of like moment to moment, and I feel like this game has bad pacing in that it feels like you are moving from place to place, and then it's very abrupt that it's just like, you can just quit now if you want.
Yeah, it's I think it's one thing I have in my notes that I thought was maybe a little bit too nitpicky, is like, as I describe, each level kind of feels like it's its own little different thing, and it kind of makes the game as a whole not really feel as cohesive as it could, and that might also add to it. The feeling like once you're done, you're like, oh, like, this kind of doesn't feel tied together as much as like some other games might be.
Yeah.
But, as I said, I don't think it's like a big thing or anything.
Oh, did you give Mustache Girl an extra timepiece?
I did this time. It seemed like the thing that Hat Kid would do. I don't remember what I did before. I feel like at least one playthrough I probably didn't. But I threw her a timepiece.
Through a timepiece.
Yeah.
That's good. Does that do any, like? I mean, I guess you haven't gotten through to the sixth level or the second DLC yet, but like,
I don't think it's gonna come back
damn.
in any way. That's like a post you beat the game thing, and that's usually not canon when you
Right.
go back and play DLC. So it's as if that hasn't happened yet in my playthrough. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the implications of that are. Maybe it's a little bit of sequel bait. I don't know.
Possibly. Hat Kid just feels too. I don't know. Hat Kid is a character. This is the last thing that I have. I
Okay.
think, is that Hat Kid is the game is designed to make her like aggressively cute. Like that's the point. At like when you unlock a level, she does like a little dance.
I don't know if this is something like a part of Gearbox's like official branding for the game.
Gears for breakfast.
Gears for what did I say?
Gearbox,
Oh.
who's the Borderlands
Yes,
developer.
okay. Gears for breakfast. It described it as like the cutest 3D platformer ever made, or something along those lines, like the cutest collectathon or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely intentional.
Yeah, and the comedy in the game is sort of like this juxtaposition between like her very soft exterior and this very harsh world in a lot of ways, and then they subvert it by taking the harsh world and making it soft as well. They're all friends.
Yeah. She feels very much like a 90s thing to me. Like she's just got this kind of attitude to her. And she's just kind of like this optimistic force that kind of molds everyone to like brings everyone to her side that
Right.
meets her. And like it doesn't really go much further than that. She's more of a concept. Like she's just a blank slate avatar that's cute,
Yeah.
you know.
And then that's kind of like that's
She's
the
a little
interesting
plucky,
thing,
I
because I
guess.
feel like that isn't a hallmark of the genre and like was a choice that they made. And I don't know, I think it worked out pretty well. I think the visual design of this game generally is pretty good.
Yeah. I know they went with cell shading for the reasons people usually go with cell shading is because it's easier to make something that looks good.
Yeah.
It takes less time, I guess I should say. And so yeah, and they lean into that. Like everything looks very visually appealing. I like their use of like their texturing. I think is nice. Like one thing that comes to mind is like the boards. Like there's a lot of them in Mafia Town. I think they're just like that flat brown color, but then like the wood grain, like the way it's styled, just like it just looks appealing. It's got a lot of pop to it.
Yeah, and they don't like, because there's so much going on in a lot of the levels, you can tell that there's a lot of work that went into making those textures and making them sort of like stand out as different things. Like with very few exceptions, like most of them do a good job of being visually noticeable, and the spaceship like hub world is really just like a celebration of color for the most part. Like it's so bright and everything is like real wacky, and there's weird, like there's a text-based game that's just like in this big computer that has like wide angles, and it's just like it's designed all strange.
It's like the plutonic ideal of like a clubhouse.
Right, yeah.
Got all the cool gadgets and stuff.
And Zork.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
it's
I
also
always
it's got
wanted in my-
Zork, it's got a Roomba, you know, all the things that kids like.
Hell yeah.
In classic no clip fashion, you want to talk about that soundtrack?
Sure.
Because I know one of their Kickstarter stretch goals was if we get X amount of money, we'll get Grant Kirkhope to write music. And I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I know he did a few tracks, but I'm pretty sure the one that stands out the most that he did is the hub theme.
Yeah.
Like it feels so him, and it's a great track, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly...
It feels very spacey and like adventurous. Like it fits the tone of the game pretty perfect, I think.
It's got a theremin in it, which is a very space instrument. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the soundtrack, honestly. I'm not in love with it. I'll say that much. I think that
That's fair.
it has things in it that are good. The elements that it clearly copied from Banjo-Kazooie and other Rare games are the excellence in like ambiance, I guess.
Okay.
Like there's a sense of place to all of the music that feels appropriate. Except then they have places like Mafia Town where you have no idea what type of music you would expect to be playing there. And I feel like it's not that the music clashes, but it's not the same level of like really tight like synergy between the music and level.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking about with other aspects of the game. It's like a little bit of a lack of cohesion in parts of the design.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that.
It's still good music.
There's some standout tracks, but I think overall the soundtrack isn't quite as strong as some other. Like, I feel like 3D platformers tend to have really, really good soundtracks. And it's usually because the levels themselves have personality and it's easy to write themes for things like that.
The money spent on Grant Kirkhope was not wasted.
No,
is what I'm saying.
It sure wasn't.
It was definitely well done.
Did you unlock any of like the remixes through the Rift tokens?
I didn't even know that was a thing you
They
could
might
do.
not be in the console version. I don't remember, but you'll get, and then a band from Dead Bird Studios, like a band of owls,
right,
will move into like the ship, and then you can request them to play music.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's like the
nice
jukebox.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly like that. Sierra Mist.
Sierra Mist.
I think that's about all she wrote.
Yeah. Do we have final thoughts?
Well, you were gonna go with felt.
Felt for hats?
Yeah.
But it's weird that you use yarn to make the hats, because like who has a knit? Like just the ice hat's the only one that makes sense. No, I don't actually have a final. I was not thinking about it.
But for my final thoughts, I guess I really loved this game. Going back and replaying it, it is a bit rougher around the edges than I remembered. I think it's got a little bit of a slow start. But like once you click with it, I think it's a game that's really easy to get into a float state with. It's really fun to play. Like, as evidence, like I just played through the whole game a third time just to play the DLC, and I did that in like a day and a half. You know, like it just, once you like really click with it, it's like all other great 3D platformers. You just want to keep playing it. But yeah, that'll come when you spend a lot of time with the game. You'll kind of get to that spot. I do remember the first playthrough being a little bit rougher, but yeah, the game, it's very charming. It's really impressive given the background of the game, the team, all things that we've said. Humble beginnings, grew into something like pretty great. I can't wait to see, or at least I hope that they keep making games, like whether it's a sequel or something new. I'd like to see what they do next. Yeah, just this is a really great game. It's not gonna like it's not gonna like blow anyone's mind. Didn't reinvent any wheels, but like it's really great at what it does, and it's very impressive given the team.
Yeah, I really thought that you were gonna make it all the way through your final thoughts without saying the thing that I was going to say for my final thoughts, which seems to be a theme of these days. But you got me right at the end there. I agree. I think the takeaway here is that this is a game that was made with love by people who love the type of game that they're making. Mm-hmm. It felt like it was the kind of thing where they had a list of things in their mind that they wanted 3D platformers to do, or didn't like about 3D platformers and wanted to change that part of it. Like the thing that I noticed immediately, which is dumb, is that when you climb a ladder, it's really fast and there's like a peppy little animation at the end of her swinging up onto the thing. Mm-hmm. So climbing ladders is no longer the worst fucking thing in the world, which it is all the time.
I feel like we made a joke about a character being the fastest ladder climber. I don't remember who it was, but Hat Kid, I think, gonna give them a run for their money.
For sure. Very scurries right up that shit. And you can see this in the design where, like, there are elements of the game that just, like, go really smoothly, like, way more smoothly than you would expect them to from your experience in the genre. And the platforming itself, there's, like, great control, mid-air control, air control to Major Tom, and everything else. That's not, air control is not a thing. But
Tom control to Major Air.
To Major Ground, yes. But there's like all of these things that come together and make the parts of the game that work really work. But the rough around the edges part is really like the thing to take away. Is like, this game is a really good game that's hurt a little bit by the inexperience of the team and the low budget. And it feels sort of like a trade-off. Like, you get a great game, but it feels a little cheap. But I don't personally give a shit. Like, I just think the game's real good.
Yeah, and I think the thing I was trying to get at with my final thoughts, but kind of stumbled around it, is that fades away the more that you play it. But you have to be the kind of person that wants to keep playing it, so...
Yeah. And yeah, like I was saying, I was just playing Super Mario 64 because the Switch version just released. And my first thought was, oh my god, why does Mario control like a big fat ass? And the more that you play it, the more you kind of like, you understand the quirks and the differences. And the same thing applies here, where once you get a grip of it, it's real simple and it feels fluid and smooth. So, definitely a game worth putting time into, and the more time you put into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. So, thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Oh god, how do I even outro this? All right, so at the beginning of this podcast, we're trying some stuff. You would have heard us give this weird new like intro bit. It's not very different from our normal shit, but we want to change it up a little bit. And the reason these things are coming to mind is because next time, early October, roughly, there is going to be our 100th episode.
Woo!
Hurrah! You can tell how excited we are. And for the 100th episode, we bounced back and forth a lot. We had ideas that were really self-masturbatory, and then there were some other ideas that seemed more like these are big episode ideas, and like maybe we'll just hit them in a different way. So what we settled on is, and this might be why it takes a bit to get this episode out properly, we're going to attempt to get everyone that we all know and love as the guests of No Clip. JJ will be back, Dan will be back, Dan's brother Steven will be back, and of course Janelle will be back as well. And we're going to talk about a game that we all enjoy playing together, which is the Jackbox Party Pack. But there will still be probably a lot of self-masturbatory congratulating us on how great we've been and shit. So please do join us then. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact is on our website at noclippodcast.com. There you can find links to our YouTube, our Twitter, our Discord, where you can join. Hell, maybe we'll play a couple rounds of Jackbox together. Listen to all of our old episodes, which include mostly Mario 3D platformers, Sunshine, Odyssey.
We did Psychonauts.
We did do Psychonauts, which we mentioned several times. So if that's your jam, we got shit on those too. Thanks for listening. And
hat that like button.
Perfect.
I get to be number one because I bought the mixer.
Yeah, I mean, I get the... my microphone was made by Mad Cats.
you have to use the Mad Cats microphone.
Oh man,
with the turbo button.
It's also why I talk so fast.
That's why you're always louder.
Turbo volume. The mute button always gets stuck.
Your microphone's not even plugged in. I just let you think that you're podcasting.
All right.
It's probably about as far as that joke's gonna go.